The old Chevy pickup crunched gravel as it turned off the main road, disappearing into the dense, whispering woods of Maine. Dr. Evelyn Reed gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. 10 years. 10 years since her younger brother Michael had vanished without a trace on the Appalachian Trail, swallowed by the vast, unforgiving wilderness. Evelyn, a respected forensic geographer, usually dealt in cold, hard facts, soil samples, topographical maps, the immutable laws of geology. But Michael's disappearance defied every scientific explanation. It haunted her, a phantom ache beneath the professional detachment. Now she was back, not as a scientist, but as a sister, determined to find answers. Her destination was a secluded rustic cabin, a mere stone's throw from a particularly remote section of the Appalachian Trail, AT, a stretch locals chillingly referred to as the Shadowlands. This area, marked by a strange convergence of ancient rock formations and dense, almost primeval forest, had long held a grim reputation. Evelyn set up her mobile lab, the hum of her advanced mapping software filling the silence. She pored over archival maps and missing persons reports, her fingers tracing the serpentine path of the AT. A chilling pattern emerged, a concentration of unsolved disappearances and strange, unexplained incidents within the Shadowlands, far from common access points. It was too precise to be coincidence, too frequent to be random. The next morning, driven by a restless energy, Evelyn ventured out. She found Old Man Tiber, a reclusive, grizzled former trail warden, living in a ramshackle cabin deeper in the woods. His face was a roadmap of wrinkles, his eyes ancient and wary. He watched Evelyn with suspicion as she explained her work, dismissing her scientific jargon with a dismissive wave. But when Evelyn spoke of Michael, a flicker of understanding, almost pity, softened his gaze. "The mountain takes what it wants, little lady," Tiber rasped, his voice like dry leaves. "And sometimes it's the wanderer doing the taking." He spun a chilling tale of a malevolent entity said to haunt this very stretch of the trail, luring hikers off its path with seductive whispers and disorienting illusions. It fed, he claimed, on their confusion, their fear, their despair. Evelyn, a woman of science, scoffed, but a prickle of unease snaked down her spine. Back in her cabin, Evelyn overlaid historical GPS data from vanished hikers with local geological surveys. A pulsating magnetic anomaly appeared on her screen, centered squarely within the Shadowlands. It was a fluctuating, unpredictable field that seemed to distort signals and disorient trekkers. It was far too localized, too intense to be a natural phenomenon. Armed with her specialized equipment, Evelyn hiked deep into the heart of the Shadowlands. The air grew heavy, the trees seemed to press in closer, their branches like skeletal fingers. As she adjusted her seismic sensors, she heard it. A faint, almost melodic whisper, carried on the wind from seemingly nowhere. It was a voice, soft and breathy, calling her name. Evelyn. Then, undeniably, Michael's voice, whispering her name, fading into the rustle of leaves. She froze, heart hammering. Her own compass spun wildly, the needle dancing a frantic, chaotic jig. She dismissed it as fatigue, as auditory hallucination, a cruel trick of grief. But the sound felt eerily familiar, deeply personal, a chilling echo from a past she couldn't outrun. She was not just investigating a cold case, she was being drawn into it. The phantom whisper of Michael's name echoed in Evelyn Reed's mind, a tormenting melody. Her scientific skepticism warred with the chilling reality of her spinning compass. This wasn't just grief playing tricks. Something was undeniably at play in the Shadowlands. Evelyn retreated to her cabin, the forest now feeling less like a place of solitude and more like a watchful entity. She downloaded and meticulously reviewed archived trail camera footage from the remote sections of the AT, dating back years. Hours blurred into a wearying montage of wildlife and occasional hikers. Then she saw it. Fragmented clips showing figures, barely visible through the dense foliage, veering abruptly off the marked trail. They'd pause, tilt their heads as if listening, and then, with an almost trance-like movement, disappear into the trackless wilderness. One particular clip sent a jolt of ice through her veins, a lone hiker, silhouetted against the trees, turning slowly, seemingly responding to an unheard call. In the deep background, a quick, indistinct shifting shadow darted between the ancient pines, moving too fast, too fluidly, to be an animal or human. That night, sleep offered no true escape. Evelyn was plunged into vivid, unsettling dreams. She was lost on a fog-shrouded section of the AT, the air thick and cloying. The trees, gnarled and twisted, seemed to writhe into grotesque, menacing shapes, their branches like grasping claws. A deep, resonant hum vibrated through the very earth, a low thrum that resonated in her bones, echoing the magnetic anomaly she'd detected. Then, Michael's voice, clear as a bell, not distressed but eerily calm, echoed through the mist. "Come find me, Evie, deeper, into the light." He wasn't scared, he was beckoning her. She awoke with a gasp, drenched in cold sweat, the phantom hum still throbbing in her ears. Shaken, Evelyn returned to Old Man Tiber's cabin the next day. He sat on his porch, whittling a piece of wood, his eyes seeming to pierce right through her. Seeing her gaunt face and troubled eyes, and perhaps sensing her own deteriorating state, Tiber sighed. "It's got its hooks in you, doesn't it?" he grasped. He led her inside, pulling out a dusty wooden chest. From it, he produced a collection of tattered, forgotten journals from previous missing hikers, entries from decades ago. Each journal, meticulously kept until its final pages, described a pervasive sense of being watched, unexplainable cold spots, and faint hypnotic melodies just before their entries abruptly ceased. The stories were chillingly similar to Evelyn's own dream and to what she now knew about Michael's final days. Evelyn studied the journals, her mind racing. The hum from her dreams, the magnetic anomaly, the lure of the wanderer, it all clicked into a terrifying mosaic. She theorized that the magnetic anomaly wasn't just a natural occurrence. It was a byproduct of the entity, a localized distortion field designed to disorient and isolate its prey. The hum she'd heard, the same one in her dreams, was directly tied to this field, a subliminal frequency subtly influencing human minds, eroding their sense of direction, their will. As Evelyn delved deeper into the data, pushing her equipment further into the anomaly's core, the trail itself seemed to become more treacherous. Familiar pathways shifted, landmarks appeared and disappeared, and the fog thickened into an impenetrable, swirling vortex that disoriented all her instruments. She was no longer just investigating. She was becoming a player in the entity's game. The Wanderer wasn't a mere legend, but a sentient predator, actively manipulating the environment and her perception. It was drawing her deeper into its domain, mirroring the fate of countless others, including her own lost brother. She was in its trap, and the silence of the woods felt less like peace and more like a hungry, patient wait. The hum was no longer a distant vibration. It was a physical pressure against Evelyn's eardrums, a disorienting force emanating from the very core of the Shadowlands. Michael's spectral voice, along with others she now recognized from missing persons files, swirled around her. Lost, cold, follow the sound. It was a horrifying symphony of the vanished. Pushing through a particularly dense thicket of ancient pines, Evelyn stumbled upon it, a long-abandoned campsite. It was disturbingly well preserved, as if time had stopped the moment its occupants vanished. A rusted cooking pot sat half-filled with dried leaves. A collapsed tent still held the ghostly outline of a sleeping bag. Inside the tent, she found it, Michael's personal compass, its needle spinning frantically in a worn, water-damaged map of the AT. On the map, someone had painstakingly, almost obsessively, drawn a new symbol, an intricate, spiraling labyrinth, pulsing with a faint, almost internal light, mirroring the exact pattern of the magnetic anomaly Evelyn had detected. The whispers intensified, growing clearer, more insistent. Now it wasn't just Michael's voice. It was fragments of conversations, desperate cries, sudden gasps from other missing hikers. "Where am I? It's pulling me. Don't look at the light." Evelyn felt a wave of nausea. The Wanderer wasn't just mimicking, it was sampling voices, creating a macabre tapestry of its victims' final moments, using them as lures, as a twisted form of communication. The anomaly's effects escalated dramatically. The trees around Evelyn seemed to shift positions, their ancient trunks appearing and disappearing like phantoms. Paths she was certain she'd marked vanished before her eyes, only to reappear in a different direction. The dense fog, already a constant companion, thickened into an impenetrable, swirling vortex that disoriented all her instruments. Her GPS flickered erratically, refusing to pinpoint her location. The air crackled with unnatural static, a constant white noise beneath the suffocating hum. Evelyn was caught in a constantly shifting labyrinth, the forest itself a sentient trap. Just as panic threatened to overwhelm her, a familiar figure emerged from the swirling mist, Old Man Tiber. His face was grim, his eyes haunted. "You're losing yourself, just like the others," he rasped, his voice strangely gentle. He then revealed his own tragic past. His hiking partner, a young man named Silas, had vanished years ago in this very area, drawn away by the same insidious whispers. Tiber believed Silas and all the others weren't dead, but held captive by the entity. He reached into his weathered pack, pulling out a handful of ancient cryptic etchings on fragments of bark, symbols that perfectly matched the labyrinth pattern on Michael's map. "Ancient warnings," he explained, "from the tribes who lived here long ago. They called it the Shadow Weaver." Evelyn's scientific mind reeled, trying to reconcile the empirical data with Tiber's chilling folklore. But the evidence was undeniable. The entity wasn't just a force. It was playing a psychological game, using her grief, her scientific drive, her very skepticism against her. It wanted her to understand, to choose to enter its domain, to become part of its collection of echoes. The pervasive hum in her ears was no longer just a disorienting noise. It morphed into a melodic, almost hypnotic invitation. The labyrinth wasn't just a path, it was a gateway, and the whispers, growing stronger, were calling her home. The labyrinth symbol pulsed on Michael's map, a silent, glowing beacon. The incessant hum, now a deep, resonant thrumming, guided Evelyn and Old Man Tiber through the disorienting fog. The trees, once solid, seemed to shimmer at the edges of their vision, testing their sanity. Finally, they found it, a hidden cave entrance, perfectly camouflaged by thick moss and ancient roots, almost swallowed by the earth itself. It was the heart of the anomaly. As they pushed through the narrow opening, the air inside crackled with raw energy. The hum intensified, no longer a subtle vibration, but a deafening, physical force that vibrated through their very bones. It was a sound that both threatened to shatter their minds and promised a terrible revelation. Evelyn's instruments went wild, their needles spinning uncontrollably. Deep within the cave, the tunnel opened into a vast, naturally formed cavern. The walls glowed faintly with strange, bioluminescent fungi, casting an eerie, otherworldly light. Ancient, intricate carvings adorned the stone, depicting spiraling patterns that perfectly matched the labyrinth symbol on Michael's map, almost like a primordial map of the entity's domain. At the very center of the cavern, shimmering faintly, was a distortion in the air itself, a shimmering, translucent portal. It pulsed with the same chilling, melodic hum that had haunted Evelyn's dreams and lured so many to their doom. Inside the portal, Evelyn saw them. Faint, translucent figures, almost like reflections in troubled water, shifted within the iridescent light. They were trapped, suspended in a timeless, disoriented state. Her heart leaped to her throat. She recognized Michael, his familiar face etched with an expression of eternal confusion, and beside him, the faint outlines of others from missing persons files. A young woman with a faded backpack, a grizzled man with a compass clutched in his hand. They were not dead, Evelyn realized with a sickening lurch. They were held captive, their consciousness absorbed. Old Man Tiber, his voice barely a whisper against the roaring hum, confirmed her terrifying epiphany. "It's not a monster with teeth, child," he said, pointing a trembling finger at the shimmering gateway. "The Wanderer isn't a physical being. It's a sentient energy form, a parasitic consciousness that latches onto the magnetic resonance of the earth. These nodes, like this cave, are its feeding grounds. It absorbs awareness, not bodies. It adds their minds to its own vast collective consciousness." He gestured to the ancient carvings. The old ones, they called it the Shadow Weaver. Then, from within the portal, Michael's spectral image stepped forward, his form becoming slightly more defined. His voice, clear and undistorted, resonated directly in Evelyn's mind, bypassing her ears. "Evelyn, it's not suffering, it's peace. Join us." The entity was offering Evelyn the ultimate temptation, the chance to reunite with her brother, to find all the answers she craved, to escape the pain and grief of the physical world. She saw a fleeting vision of her sister, not a ghost, but alive and whole, smiling, beckoning her from within the portal. The pull was almost unbearable, a seductive promise of oblivion and reunion. The hum crescendoed, trying to draw her in, to make her choose the peace of assimilation. Michael's spectral form shimmered before Evelyn, his voice a melodic invitation, promising peace, promising reunion. The entity's hum vibrated through her, pulling at her grief, offering a seductive escape from the physical world. She saw Michael, happy, whole, beckoning her from within the translucent portal. But a primal scream of resistance tore through her mind. This peace wasn't true connection. It was assimilation, the ultimate erasure of self, the final absorption into a vast, parasitic consciousness. "No!" Evelyn choked out, battling the overwhelming temptation. Old man Tiber, his face etched with grim understanding, nodded subtly. Evelyn knew what she had to do. With trembling hands, she aimed her portable, high-frequency sonic disruptor, a device originally designed for geological signal correction, at the shimmering gateway. She pushed its power beyond safe limits, overriding every protocol. The device overloaded, emitting a piercing, agonizing shriek that caused the very cavern to tremble. The hum of the entity shrieked back, a wounded, unearthly sound. The portal flickered violently, writhing like a dying serpent. Translucent figures within it distorted, their faces contorting in a final silent agony before imploding with a sound like shattering glass. The hum died, replaced by the terrifying roar of rock and earth. The cavern began to collapse, dust and debris raining down. "Run!" Tiber yelled, pulling Evelyn towards the narrow entrance. They scrambled through the crumbling passage, barely escaping as the cave sealed shut behind them with a deafening roar. Outside, the air was still, the oppressive hum gone. The magnetic anomaly had immediately dissipated. The Appalachian Trail, once a swirling labyrinth of terror, was silent again. But the silence was profound, absolute, tinged with the memory of what had been there. Old man Tiber, weakened but alive, disappeared back into his reclusive life, a silent guardian of the trail's newly reinforced secrets. He was done with the fight, content to let the mountain claim its own quiet truths. Evelyn returned to her cabin, forever changed. The haunting whispers of the lost no longer plagued her. The traumatic bond had been severed. Yet sometimes, in the deep silence of night, she felt a faint, internal vibration, a phantom hum, a ghostly echo in her bones. It was a constant reminder that something vast and ancient still existed, merely driven back, not destroyed. The experience had given Evelyn a new purpose, a chilling understanding of the world's hidden depths. She dedicated her life to raising awareness about anomalous disappearances, forming a quiet network of researchers and families united by unexplained losses. She used her platform not just to report, but to warn, to search for other nodes. Places where the veil between worlds thinned, where other entities might exist, waiting. She knew the Wanderer was not defeated, merely driven back, waiting for another opening, another disoriented soul. In the final scene, Evelyn sat at her computer, the screen illuminating her tired face. She was analyzing satellite imagery of another remote wilderness area, a potential new Shadowlands in a different state. Her screen flickered. A single, faint, almost imperceptible line of static appeared, momentarily forming a familiar spiraling labyrinth symbol. A soft, melancholic hum, barely audible, resonated from her speakers. It wasn't the full, crushing force of the entity, but a faint, persistent echo. Then, a single, perfectly clear voice, tinged with a familiar sadness, spoke from the static. "You broke the thread, Evelyn, but you can't erase the pattern. We're still here." It was Michael's voice, a final, chilling message from the void, confirming the entity's continued existence and the eternal burden she now carried. The silence in her office was suddenly deafening, filled with the promise of more trails to explore, more echoes to chase. The hunt for hidden evil had just begun.